Hello guys, welcome to my channel. So today I'll be showing you how to make an off-shoulder 8 pieces blouse. So guys, before you make this, you need to have an idea on how to draft or how to make an off-shoulder blouse. So if you don't know how to draft an off-shoulder blouse, I have a detailed video on how to draft an off-shoulder blouse. So to know the width of what you're going to be working with, you use the biggest circumference of your upper body. So quarter of your biggest circumference plus 5 inches. And the length I'll be working with is 24 inches. But I'll be taking 4 inches off. I'll be left with 20 inches. Now I'm going to mark the vertical measurement, placing my tape like this. So I have 4 inches off here, so I'll be adding ½ inch seam allowance on the vertical measurement. This is to avoid shortage when turning with the lining. So from this 4 inches, I'm going to mark the chest line, which is 8½ inches. The bust point is 10½ inches. The under bust is 14 inches. The waist is 16½ inches. And the blouse length is 24½ inches, then plus 1 inch hemming allowance. So the next thing I'm going to do is to connect with a straight line. Next, I'm going to impute the bust span measurement, which is the distance between one bust to the other bust divided by 2. So the bust span I'm working with is 7 inches divided by 2. That will give me 3½ inches. So I'm going to add ½ inch seam allowance. That will make it 4 inches. So I'll be marking 4 inches all through to the hem line. So the next thing I'm going to do is to take the dart. So on the under bust, I'm going to come in here by 1 inch. And on this side, I'll come in also by 1 inch. So if you're working with a bigger bust from 40 inches upwards, you could take 1½ inches at this side. Then on the waist, I'll be marking 1 inch here, 1 inch here, and at the hemline, I'll mark 1 inch here and 1 inch here. So I'm going to connect these markings with a straight line. So the next thing I'm going to do is to connect these darts to the bust point. But before I do that, on this bust point, I'm going to come down by ½ inch. So this is to avoid pointiness at the bust point. So I'll mark ½ inch here. So I'm going to connect from this point to this point with my curve. So guys, if you're working with a bigger bust, you will need to come down on the bust point by 1 inch, and you're going to go upwards by 1 inch instead of the ½ inch I came down with. So by so doing, you'll be creating more room to accommodate the bust. So I'm going to mark my dart here. So I'm going to mark ½ inch here and 1 inch here. And at the bust point, I'm going to go up by ½ inch. So I'll connect from here up until this point, and from this 1 inch I'll connect to this point. So I'm just going to use my curve to blend here a bit. So when you're drafting yours and you have funny edges, please ensure to adjust them. So the next thing I'm going to do is to take the horizontal measurement. So quarter of the bust circumference I'm working with is 10 inches plus the ½ inch here. That'll be 10½. So I need to replace the dart because I'll be taking it off. So I'm going to mark 10½ inches here on the chest line. And the next thing I'm going to do is to add 3 inches seam allowance. On the under bust, I'm going to mark quarter of the under bust circumference. So quarter of the under bust circumference is 8¾ plus this 2 inches dart. So that will give me 10¾ plus 3 inches seam allowance. And on the waist, quarter of the waist circumference is 9 inches plus 2 inches dart. That will be 11 inches. On the hem, quarter of my hip circumference is 11 inches plus 2 inches dart. That will give me 13 inches plus 3 inches seam allowance. So that's here. And the next thing I'm going to do is to connect this marking. So the neck width I'm working with is 5½ inches. So here I'm going to mark 5.5 inches, and I have 1.5 inches that, so 1.5 plus 5.5 inches will give me 7 inches. So I'm also going to mark 1 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to connect from here all the way to this point with my curve. So guys, if you don't know how I achieve this neck width, I have a detailed video on how to draft an off shoulder, so I'll be linking it in the description box. So I'll connect like this. So guys, for the neckline, I'll be leaving it straight like this. So I'll be marking out the desired shape after joining my fabrics together. Now it's time to cut out. So guys, this is the back piece, and I went ahead to impute the vertical measurement. So I have the chest line, the bust point, the underbust, the waist, the hip, and the hemline. I also went ahead to add a zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. So the next thing I'm going to do is to impute the bust span measurement, just like I did for the front. So I'm going to mark 4 inches all the way from here up until this point. So you're going to mark your bust span measurement after the zipper allowance. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'll be connecting these markings with a straight line. Next, I'll mark the dart. So on the waistline, I'm going to take in 1/2 inch on this side and 1/2 inch on this side. On the hemline here, I'll mark 1/2 inch here and 1/2 inch here. So I'm going to connect from here all the way here and from here down here. So from the waist, I'll connect to the bust point. So the next thing to do is to impute the horizontal measurement. So on the chest line, I'm going to mark 1/4 of my bust circumference, and that is 10 inches. So I'm going to add 3 inches seam allowance. And on the underbust, 1/4 of my underbust circumference is 8¾ plus, I'm going to measure what I have here, which is 1/2 inch. So 8¾ plus 1/2 inch, 9¼ So I'm going to mark 9¼ here, plus 3 inches seam allowance. And on the waistline, 1/4 of my waist circumference is 9 inches, plus this 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here, which is 1 inch dart allowance. So I'm going to add it to the 9 inches. So that will give me 10 inches, plus 3 inches seam allowance. So at the hem, 1/4 of my hip circumference is 11 inches, plus this dart, which is 1 inch, plus 2.5 inches seam allowance. So the next thing I'm going to do is to connect this marking. So guys, on the neckline, I'm also going to impute 5.5 inches like I did for the front. So this is the neck width. So guys, because I'll be cutting out this dart and I need to join this piece back to this piece, so I need 1/2 inch here and 1/2 inch here, which is 1 inch, and I also need 1/2 inch to join to the sleeve. So I'll be adding 1.5 inches in total. So this is 1.5 inches. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'll use my cuff to connect from here to this point. So guys, the back piece is ready. The next thing to do is to cut out. So guys, for the center back, because of the zip allowance, I'm going to slit the center part into 2. So guys, this is what I have for the back piece. So I have the center back and the 2 sides. So guys, I have my front piece here. This is the center front, and these are the 2 sides for the front. So because this is an 8 pieces blouse, I need 4 pieces for the front and 4 pieces for the back. But here I have 3 pieces for the front. So what I'm going to do is to open this up, the center front. I'm going to divide this into 2. So I'm going to slit it open from here to have 4 pieces. So I have 2 sides and 2 center piece. So guys, I have 4 pieces for the back and I have 4 pieces for the front. So that will give me 8 pieces. So when cutting this center front on my fabric, I will need to add 1/2 inch seam allowance on this and 1/2 inch seam allowance on this. This is to join these pieces together, because if I don't add the 1/2 inch, I'll be having a shortage on this piece. Next, I'm going to go ahead and transfer them on the fabric. So this is the back side piece. So I'm going to mark 4 inches here. And I'll do the same thing here. Here is 4 inches. So from the waist here, I'll connect to this point. So this is the center back piece, and for this piece I'll be having my extension only at this side. So I'm going to connect from the waist to 4 inches here, but the zipper area is going to be straight. So when cutting your pieces blouse, it's advisable to leave the zipper area straight. This is to avoid issues when fixing your zipper. So at the hem here, I'm going to mark 4 inches. And I'll connect from the waist to this point. So this is how the center back looks like, and at the zipper area there is no extension. So the next thing I'm going to do is to cut this out. So guys, I have the side piece here. This is the side front piece. So the next thing to do is to determine how wide you want your extension to be. So I want to make use of 4 inches. So from here, I'm going to mark 4 inches here. And here, I have 4 inches. So I'm going to connect from this point to the waist. So this is the waistline. I'm going to connect from here to the 4 inches. And I'll repeat the same thing to this other end. So after this, you're going to cut from here all the way. Just follow the pattern, just like this. So for the center front, I went ahead to add 1/2 inch seam allowance. So at this point, at the waist, I now connected to the 4 inches. So also from the waist here, I connected to the 4 inches. So I'm going to cut it out. So guys, I'm done cutting out all the pieces. So after cutting, the next thing you do is to go up on the sides by 1 inch. So I'm going to mark 1 inch here. So the next thing I'll do with my curve, I'll just connect it like this. I'll place my curve like this. So I'm going to connect this 1 inch to this point here, where this paper ends, where this 4 inches starts. So just to give it a curve. So I'll be doing the same thing to this side. So the next thing I'm going to do is to cut this out. So guys, this is how it looks like after trimming out. So I'll be repeating the same process to all the pieces. So guys, I did this to reduce the excesses I'm going to have when turning with my lining. So guys, I hope this tutorial was helpful. So guys, kindly watch out for the other part of the video, which will be the sewing process. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe.